Good.
Thank
You're
you.
looking good.
Yep, feeling a little better.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Everybody ready down there? Okay. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the December 7, 2023 meeting of the Planning Board and the AHRB. We have a very large agenda tonight, but we will hopefully go through it professionally and quickly. The first part, I would move, do we open to the public meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The first is AHRB Public Meeting Agenda, number 150 Judson Avenue, AHRB review for amendment of approved plans for siting revision.
You could just go up to the mic and just.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
I'm a first timer.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
name?
just, this
Name,
is a job that
serial
was
number,
already approved
address.
a while ago, and they just made some changes to the siding.
Yeah.
Waive it.
No, you approve it, it's just AHRB, so
Okay.
if you are willing to.
Okay. I mean, if you want to say anything, just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michelle Newman. I live at 50 Judson. We changed the material of our exterior along during the process, and that's all.
It's hardy plank, right?
It's half brick, half hardy,
Yeah.
and it went from white to black.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I mean, did everyone, I looked at the drawings.
I have pictures.
Oh, sure. Oh, good. Dinner and a movie.
Where's dinner? Oh, wow. Oh, that's striking.
wow,
Yeah, I
that's,
drive by your house every, I
John,
live up to the end of it.
we both live on Judson.
no,
Wow.
that's striking.
Oh, yeah, no, I've driven past that too.
This is,
You got to clean
this
up
is
your
our
gutters
form,
up here.
this is our,
Is that as
form-
blue as it looks?
No,
I
it's
think-
black.
Blow up in here.
I could be wrong, but I think this is our former chairman's house.
Okay.
It is.
Right, this is our former chairman's house, Ed Plotkin's house.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, cool.
It's black.
In honor of him, I move we approve.
Yes, I'm all for it. What do we need to do?
I don't know.
I think we just approve. Is there a resolution for this?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
So we're Jonathan Newman, the applicant is seeking AHRB approval. The property is located at 50 Judson Avenue, whereas the AHRB is familiar with the project site and general vicinity and has reviewed the application in accordance with the AHRB regulations. Now therefore be it resolved, the AHRB of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for architectural historic review approval is granted, and it refers to the plans dated, last revised December 19th, 2022, with changes to the proposed elevations.
Good. All right. I move the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Can we take the sign down now?
Sure, take the sign down.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Save it for your next project.
Next, renovation.
Thank you.
Item number 2 on our agenda, 43 Bradley Street, HRB review for proposed installation of siding and windows. Okay?
Go.
My first time or two.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, there's our existing vinyl windows, outdated windows on the house now. I'm putting in new vinyl windows. I think, we're putting in with grids. There's no grids there now. And also there's existing old vinyl siding. I'm putting new vinyl siding but they want board and batten, which is the new thing, vertical, and they picked the color cast iron, which I believe I gave you the specs on both.
Okay,
The same company does both the siding and the windows?
Me as a company, yes, I'm
Oh, I see.
He's-
Okay.
he's the
I'm the
You're
owner, I'm the
company.
owner of the company, I came for the home.
Gotcha, okay, cool.
I didn't know I needed anything in Dobbs Ferry, this is all new to me, I do work from Long Island,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that's why I'm here and
okay,
the approval.
Well,
good,
thank you for coming.
yeah.
My
indeed.
pleasure.
I
Anybody?
don't have a problem.
No, I don't have a
Dan?
problem with that.
Dan?
Any questions?
Nope, all good.
All right, I move,
We have a reso for this?
Yes, all right, so again, whereas the applicant is seeking AHRB approval, the property is located at 43 Bradley Street. Now therefore be it resolved, the AHRB of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for architectural and historic review approval is granted, subject to the following, and it specifically refers to the customer copy order quote dated September 6, 2023, which has the information.
all right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good,
Thanks.
thank you.
I sold another job in your town, but the homeowners are gonna get the permits. I told them you have to get the permits, so I know how to do
Okay.
business in your town, but thank you guys.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the AHRB agenda, discussion for proposed signage for Dobbs Ferry Public Library. Is there somebody?
Anybody online, Chris?
Is anyone presenting? Or it's just the photographs that were submitted?
I mean, did everybody look at it? It looks okay to me.
Yeah, it looks okay.
Somebody
Oh,
get
there he is. We're talking about your
No,
signage.
you gotta get the permit first.
No, that's perfect timing.
Did you pay, we gotta
Perfect
send you a
timing.
permit. for
Yeah,
your
yeah.
thing. Shoot me an email tomorrow and I'll let you know whatever you need.
Oh, right, she has to give you
Okay.
Yep.
You could, if you'd introduce yourself and then we'll
Yep.
go on.
Yes, Eric Carlson, Library Director. So yeah, my plan that I sent on was for adding signs to the library. One would be a banner that would be up throughout the year with the library logo, like a blade banner towards the corner of the building, which you see on the left. The second one would be a little bit taller, actually, than I think the rendering came out to be, but that would be up for like to promote bigger events and programs. So the one that I did that you can't really see is actually for Lunar New Year. There would be one for FerryCon, really any types of like really like larger events that we're planning. We'd go up using our scissor lift and put it on and take that one off. So there would be times, I think I sent you one rendering where there's no sign there, so it would just have the two bars covering the that drain pipe coming down.
Well, that's fine.
And is this lit at all?
No, I'm not dealing with getting electricity to those things.
And-
Right.
And is it just hanging off the downspout, or?
No. So I talked to a contractor. It would be kind of a build-off to go around it where the brackets are. So it would be like built off of the building a little bit. I think it's roughly 5 to 5.5 inches, and then attached onto that.
Yeah. That's good,
Looks okay to me.
yeah. Anybody have any issues or questions on that?
I don't know.
Thanks for going back and getting better renderings. It's,
Yeah.
makes-
Yeah, well, I also scrapped the first idea because while I was trying to put it together, I realized how ridiculous it was. So this is much more manageable.
All right,
Not as noticeable, but manageable.
good.
Is this a laminated sign that you? or-
It'll likely be like a vinyl sign. Probably have like kind of like the slits cut out for the wind so that it doesn't get caught up. But it's really just vinyl outdoor laminate, not laminated, but just vinyl outdoor signs.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right,
Reso, or just a,
okay.
No,
There's no
no vote.
thanks.
Excuse me.
No vote. No.
That's it? Yeah,
No,
you're good.
that's just recommendation for one of our buildings.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Okay,
Does it go to the board, or
what?
does it go to the board, or are we done?
No,
Okay.
just for your input from the AHRB. We get it for our own buildings.
Okay.
So you're good to go?
Yes.
good, good, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Okay, the next item on our printed agenda, 6 Moulton Avenue, but that's been adjourned to January 4.
Just make a motion and a second to do that,
To adjourn it to,
adjourn it, yeah. Because it's
I make the motion, we adjourn it to January 4th.
Can I just say one thing? I don't, not a critique of the project, but I want to, because I went there today, as you saw the pictures, and it's like this lawn that goes down to the last property there, and there's a wall. And there's a drain that's clearly collecting everything that's coming down. Is that drain on the property, on the own, like who has the long-term? I guess that's the only question I have. It's like, is that drain, whose property is that on, and does it have to be maintained as an open way for all that water that comes down across those lawns to get out?
On the adjoining property, if that's the one you're referring to.
There's like a inlet to what's clearly a drain. where
Yeah,
the
that's on
water-
I believe that's the one that's on the adjoining property. And we did ask to see if they could kind of look into that just to see where it's connected or how, but it's really not, they're really not factoring that into the design
Yeah, I was
necessarily.
gonna say, so there's no,
Yeah.
there's no like thing where they permanently have to provide access to that. They can close it off if they want. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a drain on that property, but I mean, obviously it's at the low point where all
It's
the
doing
water
all the
kind of
work.
collects now, from
Yeah.
all the adjoining areas. So that's part of the question, here,
Okay.
how that's going to work with what they're doing, raising their yard.
Do we even know where that drain goes? I mean, it's pretty low. Does it even go into the village storm sewer system?
With a sawmill.
I
We-
believe it might, and it might go to the river, but I don't know that for sure. That's my guess when I look.
But anyway, it's not something we take into account. It's like, it's as if it doesn't exist. In terms of our review of what they're gonna do back there, they have to take care of it as if that thing doesn't exist.
Right, and and what they last showed was putting dry wells in to kind of take
That's-
up flow, and again, not really, relying on any new connection to that drain or,
Okay,
but we did ask, to investigate it a bit. We don't have enough information on it. I don't have anything specific like where that is connected to, but, obviously likely it eventually leads out to the river, whether it's functional or not. We don't,
okay. I was
don't
just
know.
curious if where that thing was and.
But
I
then-
would-
Well, wouldn't it be part of our purview to understand what the drainage is in that area holistically?
Yeah, that's what I was just.
well, that's why we asked the applicant to do that. Otherwise, the village would be taking on, like say, putting a camera and TVing the line, and it's on private property, the drain.
That's the thing, like, you'd have to like have some permanent arrangement.
No,
with
no,
that
I-
landowner,
I
right, to
think what
keep it open.
Alan was asking is, I mean, there are areas in Dobbs Ferry that flood, and a lot of people complain about them, like the Clinton River. And how does that get looked at and dealt with? Because it's a number of homeowners, and if they, just take care of their property one by one, it's not really handling the larger issue. Is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're looking at, like we don't want this isolated change to make things worse for the adjoining properties. And, if the properties are all relying on that one drain to drain out, which is on one person's property, maybe there's got to be a more detailed look at this and but it's not an easy, question, really. The fact is they're going to raise their yard, they're going to take up volume, they're going to change drainage patterns, and what they're showing right now, we're not convinced that they're going to mitigate any effects.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to a series of pre-submission conference for Planning Board AHRB agenda. Number 1 is 11 Lyman Place, continuation pre-submission conference for proposed subdivision for 2 new single-family houses.
They're probably online.
Christina Griffin.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yeah.
just to let you know, we talked at the beginning that you were thinking about 100 Cedar Street, which is the installation of pavers, as well as, what's the other one?
2482 Beacon
Yeah,
Hill.
2482 Beacon Hill, as potentially getting waivers for site plan. If this board is interested in that, we can let the applicants know that, that they will be waived for site plan.
I think that's,
I looked at it, I think it makes sense.
For this one?
Right,
no,
Dan?
for 100
Dan,
Cedar
you like on to
and,
this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Beacon Hill.
Yeah.
And 2482.
We're just going to have Anthony look at the drainage, but it doesn't
Yep.
need a public hearing. And there was one more item on here, 327 Ashford.
Oh, they've adjourned.
That would be adjourned also,
27.
Okay,
if we want to do that before we do 11 Lyman, so nobody's waiting for that one.
okay.
Right, so just for if anybody's listening from the public, 327 Ashford Avenue is being adjourned till January. 100 Cedar Street is going to have its planning board, a site plan approval waived. You can just move forward with building permit, and the same thing with 2482 Beacon Hill Drive.
Right,
Great.
okay.
Is there any kind of motion required?
But we're on-
or no?
No.
Okay, great.
We're on Lyman Place. Have we acted on Lyman Place?
No, we're gonna do that
No.
now.
I didn't think so.
No. We are.
Christine.
Good evening, are you ready?
Yep.
Or 11 Lyman? Okay, good evening, I'm Christina Griffin, I'm the architect. I'm actually the architect for the exterior of these houses and also for the site plan. We're working with a modular company for the build out of the homes. I think there could be a representative of the owner at the meeting tonight. I think Dave Balaj is there and maybe another member of his team. I'm going to take you through our latest drawings. So I'm going to open them up right now.
We lost her.
Can everyone see?
Can you turn up the volume, her
The
volume a
drawings?
little bit, or no?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
I'll turn up my volume. Are you having trouble hearing me?
That's better.
That's better.
Okay, I'm going to raise the volume here. Okay,
Yeah,
That's
that better?
yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we have made significant changes in response to the comments that were made at the last meeting. I'm going to go actually to these photographs that we have. I just updated the photographs and I made sure that the houses closest to the site were on this page. And I took a hard look at the pattern of the neighborhood because the major, I guess, comment about the design that we had that received kind of a negative response was having a two-car garage so prominently in the front yard. And most of the houses nearby have single-car garages. There is a two-car garage in the back of the old house that we're taking down. And then a few blocks away, I have found two-car garages. But we just, and another pattern that is we see, of course, is there are many porches in some of the houses, and most of the houses. So we went back and took a look at changing the site plan so that we would have, the houses would have a porch in the front and then have a single car garage inside the house and then an outdoor parking space on the driveway. And this way we were able to make the garage door less prominent. The houses are still the same area. And just to review, these houses are 2,710 square feet. At our first meeting, we had a total that included the garage that was over 3,000, but they're only 2,710 square feet. This is an as-of-right scheme. These houses meet the zoning code in all respects. The size of the lot is 6,600 square feet. Minimum is 5,000. They're each the same size. And we are asking for a subdivision of one lot into two. The houses meet the maximum lot coverage. They are under the maximum impervious coverage. We're at 35 and 36, and maximum is 54. It meets the front yard. The minimum is 20 feet. We've actually given the front yards more than the minimum in order to have a very generous front yard and a front yard that is similar to the houses on the street. So the front yard is now 25 feet, and the side yards are 12 feet on one side and 16 feet 4 on the side that has that parking space. And the reason for the generous side yards on the, I think that's the east and west sides, is really so that we could have evergreen privacy hedging right along that parking spot. As a result of these changes, we made changes to our streetscapes. I'm going to blow this up. This is the south side of Lyman Place. And we inserted the two new designs of the houses. They are 2 stories high. They have one house has a hipped and gable roofs. The other one has only gable. And they both have front porches, and they are very similar in height and width to the houses on the street. And as you can see, last time we met, we talked about those 2 houses at the end that have porches and interesting roof lines with dormers coming out of the roof. But then as you go down the street, there are houses that have gables, just simple gables without too many dormers. This is our, at the top, we have the houses on the north side of Lyman Place. I put in the photo of the house we designed across the street at 20 Lyman Place. And most of these houses are 2 stories, some with gables and some with dormers coming out of gables. So we looked hard at seeing how we can change the shape and size, the shape of the house and the configuration so that it fit more the pattern of the houses that are in that neighborhood. This is our neighborhood plan. This is just showing the footprint of the houses on the lots. And I just want to point out that the front yard setback, it varies, but we have now set it back, the houses back, so they're very similar to the 2 houses at the end of the street. These are our sky exposure diagrams. We put our new design into the sky exposure planes that we had. Everything meets the code. Exterior lighting plan was just updated with the new layout. And here is our landscaping plan. We are planning to put 2 significant trees one on each lot. And the location has a lot to do with where the Coltech system is down underground. Unfortunately, we are taking this tree as the tree in front down. We looked at many ways to avoid doing that by flipping the house, flipping the driveway. But unfortunately, the tree is very close to the construction of this house and the driveway, so that the driveway and the Coltex below are cutting into the root system of the tree, even if we flip the house and the driveway. So I decided to keep the driveways mirror images, and that is so that we have generous green space between the houses, and we don't have too much bituminous surfacing touching each other. We are adding new trees that meet the village code for tree valuation. The code says that the total aggregate diameter of trees to be removed has to be, we need to replace 50% of that number. And our new trees is much more than the 50% of the trees that we're removing. This was a comment from the village planner, and I will submit this. I just did this calculation today for the meeting, but I will make sure it's submitted soon to the building department. And this is our color scheme, our material and color scheme. I'm going to blow up these two houses. The house on the left on lot 2 has a front porch with a hipped roof and a closed gable over the front door. We have 6-inch square columns with a bracket detail, a single door. The windows on this house are a 2/1 pattern for most of the windows. They're more of a 1/3, 2/3 arrangement, like an arts and crafts type of look. The siding here is lap siding on the bottom and shingles on top. And there's a bay window centered on the gable here, double windows on the other side. And this is a different pattern of windows that we have at the house on the right. House on the right has simple 4/4 pattern of windows. It has cleaner lines. It has simple gable roofs with board and batten up in the gables and lap siding below. The roof over the porch is a shed roof, unlike the other roof, instead of a hip, and it's a standing seam roof. We have an open gable with a cathedral ceiling and a hanging pendant over the front door, which is a single panel with side lights. We have a different garage design for each house, different color for each door, for the 2 doors. The house on the right are shades of gray. It's a bluish gray, and the house on the left are shades of beige, off-white, and a taupe. And all the colors and materials are here indicated below. I have asked Obata, oh, by the way, in case you want this information, we also changed, we did change the floor plans, and that was necessary to have a 1-car garage instead of a 2-car garage. And that garage is set back from the front porch. And there's another setback on the 2nd floor to have a small roof over the garage, so that the gable in front of the house is symmetrical with the porches and is prominent of the garage. Now, I have asked Ubata from Hudson Engineering to just briefly let you know that part of our challenge with trying to save the tree was also the location of the storm drainage units. And I thought it might be information you'd like to know about, to understand why we made the decisions on where the houses were located and the configuration of the driveways. Is Obata here? Well, if he isn't, I'm just going to tell you, I'll explain it. For the stormwater system, there are test pits made, and there's rock a few feet below the surface in the front and the back. And the location of the Kotex, it has to be here on the right side of this driveway. And we would flip the driveway, and we would have to, well, there's not a way to put the Kotex in any other place because of the limitation of space, really, because of the amount of rock that we have below. So we have Kotex that are actually to the right of the driveway here, and then under this driveway, and some in the back, all for that reason.
Is in the attendees room. He didn't think he would need to be promoted.
So this is the extent of my presentation. I'd like to know if you have any questions, and we'd like to know if you might consider having us go to the public hearing next time.
I think it's a huge improvement
Yeah.
to what we saw before as far as the context of the neighborhood and how it fits in.
Christina, Laura, a contact of hers gave her some history about this area in the street, and there's a number of Wardway homes. You know, the Wardway, you know, the Montgomery Ward, just like Sears homes.
Yes.
Down on the end of the street, the two at the end of the street are obviously Wardway homes. But so if you want to just look at, I mean, I don't think this affects your design that much, but if you'd like to look at some of the, you know, the proportions of the columns and other, and railings and so on.
Actually, the yellow house that you're presenting now was one of those
Really,
homes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, I think maybe these two.
Yes, and I think, I don't remember exactly the details, but I think they like flipped the floor plans or something.
But there's, you know, you can see, you look online and you can see those old 20s
Yeah.
Wardway homes, 20s and 30s Wardway homes, which are cool. Might be interesting.
Yeah,
I can
They're
send
very-
it to her. if you want.
very charming.
So I just have to say, for me, I find the houses still to be too similar. And I guess I'm curious about that they're kind of kit. Can you explain a little bit the design? I guess the person who's actually the builder. These are from a set of standard designs?
I can answer that, unless, is there,
Yeah, and so because I'm curious whether or not it's possible to get two different houses that are both kind of standard or kit-built or somehow, but are fundamentally different in a way. I appreciate what you're trying to do with the roofs and cladding them differently and some of the changes in the fenestration, but for me, given the diversity of the housing on the street, some of them are nice, some of them are not so nice, but they're all very different from each other. I still, for me, there's still too much, two of the same houses, which to me has a different kind of feel than the rest of the street. It's better. I like the whole strategy towards the parking and so on that you're taking, but my real issue is, for me, that they're too similar.
well, they're similar floor plans, they're this. But, I think I think they have a different feel and look, and maybe you're looking, I mean, they do have, the same floor plan, but, I have looked at different roof lines and they're detailed differently, and different windows. I think they have a different feel about them. And I think that in the 20s and years ago, you had builders that would have slightly different versions of similar floor plans. And I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. I'm not sure if that should be a problem. The houses, there are some houses, not on this street, but I think there are some houses nearby where there'd be sometimes two built by the same builder that look very similar, and I mean similar in layout. But I think we have so many examples in river towns of houses that were done at the same time and have a lot in common, but different materials, different different trim details, different windows. So I am working with the same plan for each, so I don't know how much you could change. You'd have to change the plan to make the houses look much different, I think.
And I guess that's my question. Like there are a lot of ways, right? There's a million ways to do a, how many bedrooms is this house?
4 bedrooms.
Yeah, right. There's a million ways to do this house. So I guess I don't, I'm trying to, I don't understand what the economics are behind having, I mean, it'll be easier for the builders. They'll be buying the same materials. The contractors will know what they did in one house. They're gonna do exactly the same thing in the next house. So I get that there's an economy of scale for the developer. But
I think the developers here and like to talk because I am part of a team and I'm focused on the exterior using these floor plans that were provided by the modular company. But maybe Dave Balaj is here and could talk to you about
Good
that.
evening, members of the board. My name is David Belai. I'm here with Matt Barbaccia. We're part of the development team. We didn't make the last 2 meetings, but we're here tonight. We'd like to address, obviously, any concerns or any questions that you may have. I think we did a significant amount of work since the last meeting, and I think you have recognized that as well and appreciate what we have done so far. Mr. Lane, so I can certainly understand when you say different. We can, expand on what you consider, a million different ways to do so. You can build a house obviously in a million different ways, and we've been doing this enough that we can say that we typically treat every home individually for assuming that there's going to be individual buyers for every home. So we don't look at this from strictly a development aspect, from, again, economies of scale, economics, and so forth. We look at this as genuinely, end users and people who want to appreciate their own significant home. And, I mean,
But they're getting, the two potential buyers have to be exactly the same people. I mean, they are the house, once they walk inside,
well, if you
whoever it is, they're buying exactly the same house, right?
No, they're not, because they're two different homes. They're different colors. There's different aesthetic. Every house has a front door. Every house has a garage door. Every house has windows. You shop, you're going to have relative comparisons to every aspect of the components of a home. They're all going to be similar. I think if we go down to any subdivision that's above 3, 4, 5 lots, I think you can easily tell that the builder built houses and built all those homes because they're relatively similar in design, because, again, it only makes sense, not only from a developer standpoint, but I think if anyone who was to build their own home, they would still look at the neighborhood as we just did and basically make something that's similar to what's there on the street. And again, the whole purpose of construction and development is to entertain new creative ideas, new creative designs, new technology, new materials, new ways to put something together. So with that said, how much more different would we, they have to have roof lines, they need, porches. Sounds like the porches were important to make it similar to the street and to the town and to the other homes in the area, which I think that's been accommodated. Again, in today's world, forget about us as a developer, just as an end user, I think statistically, most homes have they're two-car households. So I'm not sure who's going to have the discussion of whether the husband, wife, or child, son, or daughter is going to have their car outside in the snow, because now that's the situation we have here, which, again, if we're going to try to keep it consistent with the neighborhood, we understand that. But most people in today's buying world, I think, and anyone who's looking to even renovate a home would try to maximize the ability to put more than one car on that. But again, we're beyond that. So we would like to take this forward because I think they're materially different. Because again, if they had the same roof lines and siding and so forth, then that'd be one thing. But they're different homes.
Any comments? I mean, I don't have as much a problem with it as Rob does.
No.
It's, looking at these Wardway homes in the 20s, they had 5 or 6 different models, and they sort of rearranged the roof lines, and it's in that same spirit, I think. Although over time, I grew up when I was little, I grew up in a 1950s subdivision. Houses where there were 3 or 4 different types of houses, and over time, people added stuff, and they pumped it out. They, put in a skylight. They, so eventually one house got torn down. So eventually, it was much more diverse looking. But I don't know what my point is, but I don't have that much of a problem with it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No, I don't think so. Kind of ironically, we used to live a long time ago on Luzerne. If you know where Luzerne is, it's the road
Yes,
that goes up
I
there.
do.
Christina may know, I don't know
Yeah.
offhand.
Yes, I do.
You know. So I'm very familiar with this area, because I like to go back there to see what's going on. And I think, I don't know, the house we had there was somewhat similar to this, and I think these seem to be somewhat different. They're obviously not wholly different. They're not, one isn't square or something, but I think those have enough differences to pass the test on that.
So, but I'm curious, do you have other 4-bedroom house typologies that you've built? I guess I'm curious, what would your objection be to pulling out one of the other designs from one of the other drawers and putting it up here?
Because I think we're too far down the road at this point with the amount of time we've spent and the efforts we've put into these 2 particular designs. And again, we've looked at these as 2 individual homes to begin with, because we know as any other buyer would want, they want their own home to look as their own, and individually appreciate some level of difference between their neighbors. So we've already taken that into consideration. And again, I'm not saying that we're objecting to perhaps taking a look at it with our modular company and so forth to see if there's something else we can tweak.
Like maybe, like.
But again,
Yeah.
I think we would have to deal with that once we go to drawings to see what we could or couldn't do. But on this basis, I think what we have, and again, in fairness, I think they're materially different and work in the context of making them unique unto their own. But not only that, the topo here is slightly different, where the house is going to, from perspective, just from the street view, they're going to look different because they're going to have different elevations.
And the trees as well. Yeah. Laura, what do you think?
I actually, I respect what Rob's saying, but I do believe that they are different, and that they're much more improved than what they were proposing. So I'd be in favor of going to a public hearing.
They will both look like new houses.
I'm looking at Alan. What?
I'm a little pained. I kind of agree with Rob here that, the fact that I basically mirrored the floor plans force them to look similar. And, that would be my complaint,
But what's wrong with that?
We're not a 1950, 400-unit subdivision in Dobbs Ferry.
That's far from what we're talking about here.
Let me finish, please. Most houses in Dobbs Ferry are very unique. A lot of the reason is they're old and even modified, the chairman said. But there's not a lot of that similarity that exists in a lot of larger developments, and I think that's my objection. In fact, we have a piece in our code that says that we can reject a project if it's excessively similar from an AHRB standpoint. So, and that part of the code exists to protect against cookie cutter solutions that look too similar. So I think it's in our purview to make sure that those concerns get respected.
Yeah. But I wouldn't want to see a house with a flat roof or something. I think you need to have, unless you like flat roofs houses.
No, but there's no one's talking about it going to a modern look, although I actually think I could tolerate that too. But I think there's, like I said, there's a million ways to do a little 4-bedroom house. And so I'm not saying we have to go to a flat roof, but I think it could be, I disagree with you that it's substantively different. I think that the two houses will sell for exactly the same price, and they'll have exactly the same profile of buyer, and which is okay, actually. That's not really the standard. I think it's more just the overall massing of the thing
3 ups.
could be different.
You up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got 2 nays and 3 ups.
Yep,
Go to a public hearing.
yep. Where are we?
It's,
It's pre-submission.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll call for a public hearing. Okay,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing? Aye?
Well,
Nay?
well, we got 4 now.
All against?
Oh,
Okay,
you're against, okay.
I'm against.
Yeah,
All right.
2 against.
all right, 3-2.
Wow, a split board, that almost never happens.
Yep.
Nay.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
We have called for a public hearing at our next meeting,
Thank you.
and we'll look
Appreciate
forward
that.
to seeing you then.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Record, that's January 4th.
Good night.
I'm sorry, what?
January
January
4th.
January
It's
4th.
the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, right. Okay. Item number 2, 3, I think that's right, 327 Ashford Avenue.
No, that was.
That was one of the ones that
No,
was
we took
adjourned.
that
to the
off.
Turning that.
I took that off, sorry.
So it's
By the way,
327 Ashford Avenue.
Wait a
Till
minute.
the next, they adjourn.
Yeah, that's been adjourned. We haven't received any new material.
Oh, you're here to represent? Yeah. How did this get adjourned then?
I don't know.
we did. Other than an overall question about the overall configuration of the building, right?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah?
You had said, would you be open to changing the windows?
No.
We said yes.
The roof,
And the roof, well, at the end, that wasn't brought up, because explaining the roof line and the reasons, the parameters, but at the end, none of that was brought up. It was left that you guys were gonna go visit the site.
Which we
we
did.
did.
Okay, so can we get feedback from that, because we didn't.
Yeah, I think the building is still inappropriate as proposed.
So let's, let's discuss this, since you're here.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Tell us what was.
I did make my comment.
Because because the proposed structure has no relationship whatsoever to the existing architecture of the house, which I went up to see today and is quite interesting.
Well, actually, I think what you'd done is you mimicked the window, 3-pane window, and you covered it with shakes, right? Cedar siding.
So you're saying the existing house is.
Yeah,
Base cedar.
yeah, and that's what would be on your building. No, the point,
We had, like
hard, see, my point was that it was
Neither one thing or the other.
one thing or the other is not that much like, like it was part of the original architecture of the house.
Which is
And it wasn't, and it wasn't
I don't
different
know that it's
enough.
impossible.
No, it's impossible to do with the parameters that are.
Correct, that the passive house, correct, yeah, I understand that,
Square footage.
right.
And
I think you need to be at
we
the,
talked about this last
you need to be
time.
at the mic too, because they're gonna record
Yeah,
it.
this was all what we talked about last time, that
Right.
there were certain parameters that are set up, and we've already gotten 1.5 variance from the zoning department.
No, I think our point was, and I guess we were expecting some changes in the
That wasn't
architecture.
clear, yeah.
Right.
Because my point was that it didn't look like the house, and it didn't look different enough, like it was, like
Wasn't clear
black
what it
box or
was.
something that would be sort of a nice piece of architecture. It just was neither here. So I was sort of expecting to do a little work on it.
Right, that wasn't clear at all. I mean, we went back and listened to the whole meeting again. There were no bullet points or anything. Yeah,
I thought there was a general.
But I have a question for the
Objection.
board. We've all gone to the site.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I do have a problem with the addition, as far as it looking, either it is totally an isolated structure architecturally, or it resembles, the main house. But I feel like it's not there. The roof, we talked about sloping, maybe we could put a parapet to make it straight. That's what I was under the impression that there was going to be some slight changes to it to make it a little more attractive and more architecturally within context.
I mean, I don't understand what you thought we would do. If we were going to visit the site, do you think the idea was just to go to visit the site to certify that what you presented, like, wasn't the idea that
I didn't know why.
Wasn't the idea that we would
Anything
visit the site
specific,
presumably to
yes.
give you, to like either validate or invalidate what we thought the first time?
I thought it was volumetrically.
Like, why would we go?
Looking for, I mean, we both came away with the same, perspective.
Right, but why would we go? You said we needed to go to the site. So I'm
I didn't,
curious,
we didn't say that. You
well,
guys
we
said-
said we were gonna go to the site. So what was that just to like kind of see it? And
What I took away from the last meeting was that you didn't like it.
Right.
You didn't give us any direction to go in. You said it's too modern, it's not modern enough.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
So where are the so there are some alternative schemes that you want to show us of like how it looks, how we've sort of
I'm-
revised it in some way to make it look more like the existing house or more modern or address any of the concerns we raised?
The concerns that you raised were pretty vague. And so I don't know what we're supposed to do with that. I'm hoping for feedback so that we can work with that. I personally, I mean, I'm the homeowner, I don't have the budget to hire for my architect to make 3 different designs, which is what I heard you asking. And so I'm looking for feedback. We're already over budget. I don't know what we're supposed to do. And also there's the caveat that there's one family who's going to see this garage.
Yeah, but that's not a we're not supposed to apply a standard that like it's okay because someone's going to see it, right? That's not in our code or in our criteria, right? We're
I
supposed
don't
to
know, in the
get,
previous hearing, we're comparing one house to the houses on the street. There
Yeah.
are no things to compare this house to.
I don't
This
know.
is,
It was up there, the people above are going to see it,
The
certainly.
top of the house, they're
People above,
80 feet
yeah.
above us, not 80. They're like,
I saw it pretty clearly. But that's not a standard that we would apply, right? We wouldn't say it's terrible, but we're going to sign off on it because no one sees it. That's not what we're here to do.
but you're saying that we can't do it because you saw it, I don't know.
We're saying it because the AHRB as a group has questions about the way the architecture is presented, and that it doesn't seem to belong to one style or the other, either belong to the house or to be clearly modern. And we were clear about that. I thought Steve was very clear about that last time. And so we imagined that tonight, we've all seen the site, you would be presenting some design alternatives.
See, we generally don't tell people what to design.
Yeah, that's not our job.
It's,
But it was very vague, I mean, about what you wanted, right? And that's why we left it thinking that
I
we
don't
were
know.
gonna visit.
It was pretty good.
and I'm not sure, come back with some feedback.
Is there a general sense that some of the rules that we adhered to would be restricted? Like, we would love to do more with the roof, but we'd have to ask for an extreme variance to make that happen.
Well, maybe we should talk to the zoning board and see what they would be willing to consider under the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things, because it's an ADU, we like those. Because it's a passive house, that's terrific. I mean, these are all really good things, so you get some sort of brownie points to maybe get a little bit more variance if you need it, I mean, Do you guys think so?
Yeah.
Well, I think, just for in terms of procedure, though, they would have to come back with a design
Right.
Yeah.
that
So we would
has
refer
an
to the
actual,
zoning board.
well, that actually has a variance associated with it, right? As opposed to going to the zoning board and asking them what kind of variance they would be willing to give. So, because the zoning board would have to take a look at, the plans and what it is that they're actually proposing.
But we could come, if they came back with a design, let's say that we feel that of the design with the pitched roof, let's say if that's what they, I mean, again, I'm not telling you should have a pitched roof, but let's say they came back with a scheme where they said, you know what, we're gonna try to riff on the existing building. So in order to do that, we need a pitched roof, and it means we're gonna be above the.
And there could just be some
Right.
sketches, it doesn't have to be a full
Right,
rendered.
couldn't we presumably refer them to the zoning board or even have a discussion with the zoning board about our desire to see that variance honored in order to achieve these other goals?
I don't know if you can have a discussion with the zoning board, but you.
Really, can we not?
No, you could
Dan.
refer it to the zoning.
Yeah, you can refer.
With a
it.
recommendation,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it's Greg Geary and Lynn Schmeidler are gonna see your house, is that who that is?
Not even, because
All right.
the main house blocks them.
Oh, right, yeah.
The view entirely. It's the Cornins who are at 329. They're the
Gotcha.
capstone.
Gotcha,
Which
okay.
currently they don't even live there, right? But they're up and down frequently.
I mean, it's a really cool site, and it's a very cool idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with all,
Design-wise, I mean, one of the things you had mentioned was the windows, that's come up again. So would a contemporary window style
Totally.
be something that,
Yeah, well, white box with, whatever.
or is there more? I mean, that's what I don't want to keep going back.
as Steve said, our job is not, you're not in a different position than any other applicant who comes here. And we don't tell people how to design their buildings,
Right, but you clearly have an opinion, so.
which I thought we expressed pretty clearly.
I guess the feedback is, one of the things and I want to know, one of the things that really bothers you is the windows. I mean, is there more that specifically? Because it does seem like it's not so much it's not the plan that bothers you, it's
Well,
really
I think for me, it's the side elevation. I'm just looking at your plan, the drawings here. It's the side elevation that kind of looks like I hate to say it, like a trailer, and the way that it's pitched, like if there's, and I understand it's a zoning issue possibly, but if there was something that could be more architecturally incorporated with that side versus the front. I mean, I think the front elevation is pretty good. It's for me, the side is the part that.
Which side?
What is that side?
It's just
The
the
east
side of the roof
elevation,
pitch.
correct.
Given that shape, I think you have more success with a really modern building. That would work.
It doesn't read on all sides. It's like,
Or as Steve was saying, do a really modern box, flat roof, modern corner windows, like something doesn't even pretend, that's its own little jewelry box, completely different than the existing house. That's the way I would go, unless you went the other way, which is to do something that really riffs off the other house, pitched roofs, similar window styles, and so on.
which doesn't seem really feasible with the code.
Restrictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I think that's unfortunate. I mean,
As the homeowner, I would certainly rather them tell a consistent story than have a modern box. So,
although the house you have, what do you think of the one you have now? I mean, how would you describe the one that's been designed for you then?
like Frankenstein's monster. I mean, it's 150 years old. It's had.
No, the new one.
The new
How
one.
would you describe, if someone asked you, I just built an ADU, and they said, oh yeah, what style is it? What would you say?
Well, what we had agreed on going into this, given the restrictions, was we wanted something that would not draw attention, because the centerpiece of our property is our house. We don't care about this ADU or this garage. It's utilitarian in many purposes. And so the way that IRA designed it was something that wasn't modern and eye-catching, that wasn't a jewel in a jewelry box. It was something that
nondescript.
Yeah, it wasn't noteworthy.
That's a pretty low bar to go into a project with as an architect, right? I'm sorry.
I would disagree. I mean, Deborah Burke made a living out of it. There's plenty of architects who have gone for.
Now, I worked for Deborah Burke, so
architecture
be careful. I worked for Deborah Burke.
So did I.
Yeah, I just think it could be something really nice, and it just is not really quite there yet, yeah.
So what I take away from this, what I would like to do is agree with you, go more towards the tying it together. That's just our style. And we'll just hope that the zoning board, kind of goes along with it as a brownie points thing.
Well, yeah, as long as
We
it's
can't do
not,
it given the consistency.
as long as it's not too egregious.
We wouldn't, yeah.
I mean, and also, I would suggest that, and I guess this is, this isn't directed at you, this is my own frustration with the process. We have this so-called pre-submission process, right? Presumably, the idea of the pre-submission conference, and maybe we should all figure out how to make this happen, is that people would come in with their projects at a stage when this discussion was not this painful. Where like, you weren't telling me, well, I've already paid this guy $100,000 to do my design. Like, I don't know how we do this, and I don't know how we communicate it to our applicants, but we need people to come in with things that are sort of at a place where they really are, it's pre-submission. It means like we could have the kind of discussion we're having now, and you'd say, okay, we'll do some other quick massing studies and get closer to what we want. And then you could proceed with the drawings and we'd be closer to what we really want to get to. That's not a frustration. That's like, I'm really frustrated with that in our process. We have other projects tonight. We're going to see another one in a few minutes that I feel the same way about. So I guess I personally would like to see if what you'd really like to do is something that's kind of more of a riff on the original house, I would love to see that design, and I will kind of, I don't know what, I have to ask our lawyers and planners what kind of interface we can have with the zoning board to kind of advance that, given the special situation of the topography and so on.
And I agree with Laura, that's really the east elevation. The south elevation is.
Specifically east or east and west?
Just east, because you're looking at the west, right?
Yeah, right. The east is boring.
Yeah, the west is just a, so.
But the east also isn't seen even by the residents that are right there.
Really,
So
huh?
it probably got the least amount of attention because.
There's a hill right there.
So as you come up the driveway, you're looking at the south elevation?
You're looking at the south, yeah, the south facing elevation.
Because the neighbors have a garage, the neighbors to the west, 329 Hornets, have a garage that's right there, but the garage blocks all view to the house.
By the way, what is the story with the house at the end of the drive?
Yeah, that's this one, 329. They said it's officially condemned, that they have applied for a demolition permit.
Yes.
It's too bad. I mean, it's too bad that they let it get to that
The
state.
house is too far gone, yeah, we had an engineer's
It's too
report
bad,
done on it.
because it's kind of a,
Growing through the middle of it.
huh?
There's a tree growing through the middle.
Wow.
It's been like that for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm sorry, we're not, yeah.
No, and I think it would be great, there's earlier discussion. I think also like once a month is difficult too. Because
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I would say that there could be more information about this on the website, and the documents that exist that we were referencing are all highly polished, right? So we kind of looked at previous submissions as the bar, and there's not really sample pre-submission documents. So that would be a suggestion maybe.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know, I was telling you, we should figure out how to communicate that to applicants.
The applicants who come in here a lot, they sort of understand that they're coming with stuff that's half-baked.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we see a lot of projects that are so far baked that we feel it's uncomfortable having these discussions, where it should initially be something that's, people are not so invested in what they've already done that you can't have a creative discussion about a good solution. So, I don't know. We'll have to talk about that among ourselves, to
We
figure
need
out.
a visit to the property.
We,
Yeah, we did it.
oh, we did it.
Well, we did it.
Yeah,
Maybe we need it again.
I don't know.
No, Rob took some good pictures. I can send them to you. What's next?
Okay.
All right,
So do you have
Right.
a understanding now of what you are going to do for the next meeting?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's a citing issue, not citing issue.
yeah, no.
Anything like that, it's working on the elevations and.
And maybe the roof line, yeah.
Yeah,
Gonna
I,
see if
I
we can
think that would
find out.
be a benefit
Yeah,
to the building.
This wasn't my first choice of roof line or ours.
Right.
but we
Tried to
we
fix
just
with
tried
the
to
code.
keep it-
Mhm.
It's 8 foot at the back, and, we just tried to get a little more room at 10 feet at the front, and that's, I wanted to do more playing with the roof line, but
What is the specific thing that you're up against? What is the specific thing that they're up against in terms of the height?
It's 20 foot or a story and a half for.
Based on like, how are you measuring the grades
The
around?
average grade.
And they have this weird site, right, where like, it suddenly dropped, where,
well, it's sort of
There's a pool there now.
tucked in, so we took 20 feet. The way that you towards.
yeah.
No, actually, I'm sorry, it's not average grade, it's the total height for an accessory dwelling unit. It's 20 foot or a story and a half.
But just as an absolute, but measured from where?
The highest point.
The height of the building, I guess.
No, but like from where, where are you
Like
starting the
if it
measurement?
slopes, where do you take that height from? Is it
would
an
be the
average?
greatest.
The highest point?
Yeah.
The highest point on the site?
So that actually gives you
And
more.
also, it's putting like a two-car garage and an accessory dwelling unit. So maybe if it was just one or the other, it would work. You know what I'm saying? They're putting a two-car garage and then accessory
And then the
dwelling
dwelling
unit
unit,
above
yeah.
it. If you were just putting an accessory dwelling unit, maybe it would comply to the code.
Oh, that's funny.
They're putting a two-car garage and then.
No, which is fine, I like what
Right.
they're trying to do.
Yeah, no, this is all positive.
Well,
Okay.
So just
okay, one.
carry it
would.
over to next meeting.
Yeah,
adjourn-
we could give it another shot.
Adjourn to the next meeting. I propose we adjourn this to the next meeting.
I
And
second it.
will you take another,
January
sort of
4th.
take another look maybe at the massing and fenestration thing? For
Just
us?
some, sketches, especially, from the point of view of the driveway, what's gonna look, three-quarter, what it's gonna look like. I think that'll go a long way. Sketch.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm sorry.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda, item number 3, 2 Castle Hill Close and 4 Castle Hill Close, pre-submission conference for proposed redraw of property line between 2 Castle Hill Close and 4 Castle Close.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Board. My name is Annie Barr. I live at 2 Castle Hill Close. I'm here with my neighbors. They live at 4 Castle Hill Close. It's actually pretty simple what we're trying to do. We
Oh,
have
you'd be surprised.
You would think. So the property line currently is diagonal between the two properties, so that when I look out my office, I actually look out to my backyard, and their property actually goes diagonal halfway through our backyard. And with regard to their property, when they look out their front windows, there's a diagonal so that straight ahead from their windows is actually our property, which is just very odd between the two houses. I think because these 5 houses on our little cul-de-sac, we're all the same developer. I think that we're just trying to make the properties even. That's my speculation, but it's just kind of odd. So all we're trying to do is literally just straighten out the line.
So it would be sort of perpendicular to.
So it would be straight back from the
Castleton?
street, effectively, and then there's a little, the only reason why there's like a little hitch to it is just to make sure that none of the property acreage changes, there's no real change to our ownership, it's just to make it kind of cleaner.
Do two neighbors actually agree on something?
We agree.
Anything in which two neighbors agree with each other.
This would go like that.
Right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we only discovered this when we were doing landscaping and realized, wait a second, like, I'm landscaping half of your front yard and you're landscaping half of my backyard.
Okay.
So,
So
that's the
do we
extent
have,
of it.
are we doing?
No,
anything?
this requires a site plan, I mean, sorry, public hearing, because it's a
Yeah.
subdivision.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
So we have to have a public hearing.
Okay.
Let's have a public hearing.
Yeah.
I move we have a public hearing.
Second.
Aye.
So that means that
Aye.
It means next month.
everybody
Wait a
else in the
minute.
neighborhood has a.
Wait a minute.
No, I'm listening to it.
Oh, everybody else in the neighborhood has anybody who's interested in this, in changing your lot line can come and say, I'm all for it, or I have a problem with changing your lot line. I mean, it's sort of a legal thing we have
It's
to
a
do.
legal formality.
Okay.
Do you-
And after the public hearing, if they,
We would have a resolution ready that we'd vote on and unless something really crazy.
And that would be on January 4th.
Yeah.
Do you,
okay.
do you have already a preliminary subdivision plat showing the new line?
there
is.
should be a survey that was,
Okay.
that
They
was
submitted
already
a-
submitted
you
that has.
submitted
the
one.
line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so all of that has been submitted,
Yeah.
where
that's all you.
clearly indicates where it is. And it, again, it doesn't change any of the acreage, it doesn't change anything between the two properties.
Right.
Well, there is a utility easement shown on here.
Oh.
There is.
That
you-
can be a complicating factor.
But the utility easement does, that also doesn't change, even though the property line would change. It would just be actually that more of the utility easement is on my property and less of it's on their property. But it doesn't actually move it, if that makes sense.
Are there any,
The easement stays where it is. What is the utility that it's used for?
It's because there's a sewer drain actually in the middle of our backyard. And there's a utility easement so that if they need to go from the street to the sewer drain, that the utilities can actually go through there.
And that's for the benefit of both properties, both the two?
It actually is, I think it's actually, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the benefit for, I think it's for the whole, there's an apartment complex behind us. I think it's just for drainage. But that being said, we talked to the previous owners and the utility easement, I don't think has ever been actually
Yeah,
an issue, yeah.
I'm not overly concerned about it, but Dan and I could take a look at it, just
Okay.
figure out what it is and whether or not it has, I don't think it'll impact what you want to do.
It's literally just, I can tell you, it's a sewer manhole that has a grate on it. And then literally, right now, we have, the lawnmowers kept getting broken on that, so we put literally a little piece of grass over it, but that's removable. So,
I would just, make sure you don't have any service connections, because it seems like that drain might have been, right along the property line, the existing property line. And if you now have a service line that might cross into your neighbor's property, do you need an easement for that? Just make sure there's no connections.
Where your sewer comes out of your house or out of their house.
If it's a storm drain line, then maybe it's not as likely. If it's sanitary sewer, it's possible you could have a sewer connection there, but it sounds like maybe it's a drain line.
I think it's more of a drain line. The only reason why I say that is right in front of our house, there's also two other sewer lines directly in front. And at least from when Con Ed was digging up our front yard, they had said that most of the pipes are actually coming out to the one that's on the street.
I suppose, Tony, if it's, if it means anything, they could readjust the easement itself.
Well, presumably the easement is following the pipe, so the easement has to probably stay where it is.
Well, and we're
Right.
not proposing to change the easement at all. So even if the property line changes, the easement just either makes it more, right now the easement is currently like half on their property, half on our property. Right, with the proposed change, I think you can even see it on the survey. It would just mean that the easement is more on our property and less on their property, but it doesn't. The easement itself. That's not changing, and I don't think either of us have any issue with.
It's the access.
So in other words, if you have, let's say, a storm line coming off of your house and connecting to the storm drain that's in the easement, when you change the property line, your storm line may be on your neighbor's property now for a little ways. So that's something you should just look at and just make sure you don't have any pipe connections that would end up crossing and being on the new, the adjoining property now because of the change of the lot line.
It's currently on both properties, yeah. But I guess my only question with that would, if we're both agreeing to change the property line, and we're both agreeing that we're not changing the easement, I guess even if the sewer pipe was going, like, let's say, from their property and went through our property to get to the storm line, I'm not really sure why that would be an issue.
You have to have an easement to be able to maintain it.
But it's not our easement, and it's not their easement, it's the city's easement. It's the village's easement.
The pipe that would belong to the individual property owner.
No, the
The
easement's
service,
it's neither of
not
ours.
the easement, not the easement. If there's a connection from your house, a smaller pipe, let's say, going to this drain line, that now would have to cross their property to get to the drain line, it would need an easement. So if you have a roof leader or a pipe coming down.
We would need a private easement between the two properties.
Exactly. So I would just caution you just to check that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have access, or any future homeowners wouldn't have access to maintain that or get to that pipe on the adjoining property.
So it's more complicated.
So just because I'm a lawyer and not an engineer, how would I go about checking whether the sewer lines were connected to my house versus their house? Like, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to dig up my yard to figure out where the connection would be.
It should show on your plans, on the original plans from the house.
I was good. We are both not the original owners of the houses.
Right.
We have our deeds, we have our surveys, but we don't have the original plan, the architectural plans for the house.
That's not I think the issue is the survey would show the easement, right?
Yeah, it does.
It shows,
Looking at
it does, it shows the easement.
Yeah.
But
But it doesn't show like where the
Doesn't
sewer
show any
connections are to the
connections.
houses.
Where's the survey?
This is the survey right here.
No, but where's the easement?
Right here.
Storm sewer street.
It,
Anthony's just saying, we got to make sure that.
it doesn't show any connections.
Yeah.
Could I suggest you coordinate with the building department on this issue and bring back the results next time?
Let me ask you this, if we have to bring the results back next time, does that mean it's not going to a public hearing?
Can we call for a public hearing?
Yeah, can we
Yeah,
please?
we can call.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Call for,
All right.
Because I think even if we don't know necessarily the answer, I think we probably are both willing, to, enter into some sort of statement saying, if there is a sewer line that's connected, we're okay, we're okay granting an easement for that purpose,
Right.
Like, we're happy to do a conditional easement if that makes sense.
Yep.
Just to avoid having to dig up any property.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Right. I move that we have a public hearing at the next,
Second?
Second. January 4th.
For my own
Yeah.
clarification, I just want to make sure I understand. So we should contact the building department to find out, what.
always,
What the next steps are to answer this question.
As to where the sewer connection is.
Yeah.
Correct.
If there is one.
Vis-à-vis our houses.
Can this,
First, is there a sewer connection?
Right. Correct.
If there's a sewer,
Oh, I'm sorry.
to which houses are covered?
Correct. And with,
where is it?
The crossing on the new proposed line is different from the original. We will come up with a statement saying that we will,
It would just be
allow an
like a
easement.
one-page, like a one-page
can you
piece.
please join the planning board? Can you please get here with us, please? She figured it out,
Okay,
so.
so does that's correct.
Yes.
Okay, we just want to make sure we're all clear
We
so
want
that
you up
we
here
know what to do.
with us.
Are you listening?
All right, so we're coming back here on January.
January 4th for the public hearing
Yeah.
with our
Got it.
resolution on this.
thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay, next item, 231 Clinton Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed accessory dwelling unit addition to existing residence.
This is the easement. No. Yeah, no. I don't see anything.
That's waived.
Okay.
It was tiny.
Is this it?
This guy's backyard.
Yeah, I know. I went to see it.
Good evening, members of the Planning Board and Architectural Review Board. My name's Dan Panesi. I'm here for and am the owner of Telus Capital, which owns the property. We were here just about a year ago for the original site plan approval for the residence. The status of the project is we are sided, new windows, new roof, installed all the drainage. First and second floors are fully roughed, inspected, insulated, sheetrocked, and painted. We have our basement roughing inspection on Monday. And we looked at the code and saw that there was the opportunity to add an ADU, and we commend the village on making that decision. We think it's a great addition to the single-family zoning. This property is in the OF2 district, I believe. We'll be moving from 43 Appleton Place in Dobbs Ferry, my family and I, to this property. Some circumstances have changed with our family, so we're going to have my in-laws hopefully move into the accessory dwelling unit. So the addition of this opportunity to the code is great. We looked at the property. There was a former greenhouse that we were hoping to preserve on the south side of the property next to the garage. You can see it here. We've eliminated the greenhouse and added a approximately 960 square foot ADU. It's basically cannibalized an existing bedroom that we had on the first floor that we built behind the garage. That bedroom with an ensuite bathroom is constructed currently. And the total ADU square footage we have is 938 square feet, which is a little bit bigger than the 800 that's in the code. There is some ability for the planning board to allow that to happen. That square footage is roughly 18% of the residence square footage, which is far below the 33% wiggle room. And I'm here to answer any questions. There are some the land use consultant did note a couple of discrepancies. We've corrected the building coverage, which remains far below what's allowed by code, as well as impervious coverage. We've proposed to remove some existing impervious patios and a portion of the driveway. And what you've seen in the plans actually shows a credit of just over 1,100 square feet.
I looked at it, I went up to the site today. I have no issues with it. I think it looks like part of the house, and so.
What will you have for parking?
Sure. So it's a rather large driveway, long, large driveway. It takes up almost the entirety of the front of the house, the width of it. There's plenty of room for cars. There's a 2-car garage in the residence now as constructed, and there's plenty of surface parking. And in order to achieve this impervious coverage credit, we're actually able to remove some of the parking lot on the north side of the parking lot. And we think it'll also make the house a little bit more approachable. It's very hard and lots of impervious coverage, like coming right up to the house. So if we can liberate that asphalt, make it a green space, it'll just have a nicer approach.
So there's enough parking, there will be enough parking for 4 cars, or?
Yeah, more than that, probably.
More than that, okay.
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah, I just don't want parking to spill out onto the streets.
It's one of those, it's in that cul-de-sac
Yeah.
cluster in the kind of big block, where there are a series of big houses.
Right.
On Clinton.
There's an ocean of room out there.
Okay, all right.
This is where the 2-car garage is, in this area, and this is all surface parking.
Yeah.
And this is basically the part of the driveway that we would be removing and grass lawn.
Okay.
That'll be nice.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's so, as long as I'm call for a public hearing.
Yeah, I have no problems with this.
Okay.
Me neither.
All right, I
I'm
move,
good.
we have a public hearing at our next meeting.
Yes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you then.
Thank you.
Looks cool.
Next item on our agenda, 22 Irvington Street, pre-submission conference for proposed addition and alteration to first and second floor of existing residence. Irving Street.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michael McGarvey. I'm the engineer for this application, 22 Irvington Street. This is Terry. Need a little technical break here. Do I?
Hey.
And this is the son of the the owner's son for 22 Irvington Street. Yaroslav. They're from Ukraine. You know, oh, well, he's screwing around here.
Okay.
I heard a story. No. This application, I believe, is very straightforward. It's a small addition on the second floor to make this house a little more livable. It's the son, the wife, and three kids. So there's 5 of them moving into this house. So they're trying to make it so that they can all live together in harmony. Not sure if that's possible with a family, but it wasn't possible with mine. Sorry? Oh, his parents are going to be there as well. That's included in the 5? No. Oh, Sheba. You need another house. All right, we're good? Okay. So let's go to the architectural first. Let's show them what we're doing as far as the changes in the plans. You want to talk?
Sure. So the existing was a one-family, one-story house with a 1.5 story with the attic space having 2 bedrooms. We wanted to increase the size of the second floor and increase the footprint of the first floor. So we're planning to do cantilevers on the first floor to increase the first floor footprint in the back, and have the cantilever on the second floor to increase the bedroom count and add a bigger bathroom for the second floor. The house.
Basically, we're 190 square feet additional pervious surface. We will be changing the second floor layout. We have 2 bedrooms up there. Right, currently there's 2, right?
It's 2 now.
2 now.
But we're going to have 3. It's going to be 3.
Right. It'll be 3 with a larger bathroom with the increase in footprint for the on the second floor.
So the original house, as you can see, the dotted lines, we tried to keep the addition within the skyline exposure plane. And we only have a cantilevered about 2.5 feet for the process. The additional square footage, impervious square footage is going to be over the grass here and the great existing gravel driveway, which is the 190 square feet.
We did get a letter from, I guess, I don't know if it was AI or if it was on engineering about, they wanted to see the Coltech. We do have that on here. They wanted a clean out basin before that, so we will show, we don't have it there now, we just got it yesterday. We'll show the clean out basin for the water to go into before it goes into the Coltex. We'll take care of that before the next meeting.
But again, the square footage was 190. Based on their calculations, we only needed one dish.
One Coltech, 330.
So this is the rear view. This is a section of the addition that's on piers. First floor is going to be an unconditioned porch, and the second is going to be master, which master bedroom plans are here. This is the porch and the master bedroom sticking out in the back. Again, this is all going to be on piers, as you see on the foundation.
Okay.
Just because stormwater management is such a big issue in this town, what's the current stormwater management scheme there? Is it just
It's
downspouts on the surface?
Yeah, basically, yes, sir.
Okay. And you're proposing, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. You're proposing some multiple Coltex to?
No, we're proposing one Coltech for the increase in impervious surface of 190 square feet.
Okay.
And the one Coltech will handle the 190 square feet increase in impervious surface.
Okay.
So have you, a couple questions. First of all, in terms of the sky exposure plane?
Yes.
Like, which is, well, no, I was gonna say, there's like, this is a great example of a place where it works and where it doesn't work. Where it works is on your front, if you go to your front elevation, I'm thinking to myself, thank goodness we have the sky exposure plane because it's actually keeping, relative to the house that's north of you, that's considerable, this house is gonna, have you spoken, by the way, to your neighbor? Has your neighbor to the, below you seen any of this?
The nearest one,
yet?
yeah.
Okay.
They saw it, and the only thing they want to plant the tree.
Okay, because it's gonna loom over their property quite a bit. Now, because of the sky exposure plane there, it's great, because it actually has forced you to kind of keep the roof line down. But I think you should ignore the sky exposure plane that's on the Irvington Street side, that's made you do this weird clip-off onto the, if you look at the left side elevation, yeah, that elevation, you don't have to do that. You just extend the.
And I don't know, zoning, I don't know what.
Well, the sky exposure plane is a guideline.
Yeah.
Like in Pirates of the Caribbean, and we can decide whether we want to enforce. And I leave it to the rest of my board members, but I would not do that one.
Yeah.
Because I think it looks weird. And,
Yeah, I agree.
but the side ones, thank goodness we have it, because it's kind of forced you to compress the house down a little bit, which I think is good. If you go to the sheet that shows the left side elevation, what you call the left side, you should really do north, south, east, and west. But anyway, I don't understand how these drawings square with each other. So like that elevation, right? Now, if you scroll down so that you show where the section is, okay, where is that setback, that cut in?
The cantilever.
The cut in,
Okay, so.
where would I, wouldn't I on the elevation see a flat?
Are you confirming this right here?
Yeah. And
Yes.
the one to the right of it.
So let's first do this one, which is going to be on the left side, is the breakup in the roof line, right over here.
Where?
Right here is the breakup of the roof line. It corresponds to that.
Wait, shouldn't I see a flat, how can I not be seeing a flat surface?
I'm referring to this part right here, right? Correct?
I'm not seeing your cursor.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Doesn't see this trim. It's only the,
I'm saying this, where is this? Where is that?
so.
Or is that actually, I don't
That's-
see that because that's behind
Correct,
this.
correct, there is the roof right there.
Okay, and so, okay. Cool.
Yeah, so that is the roof right here, which is in front of it. Because the staircase, existing staircase,
Hmm?
we had to keep the
Yes.
headroom for it. So we couldn't reduce that.
This is kind of weird too.
Floor plans.
Yeah, cantilevers.
This is the existing staircase that was in the original house, and just to make sure we have headroom, we have to keep some angle there.
Okay.
Looks like you have room in the back, that you didn't want to make it a little bit bigger?
Like like this area you're talking about?
On the back of it looks like you have plenty of setback.
When we were, it was unclear how the setbacks worked. It sounded like the setback was roughly over here, the side yard setback, because right now we are,
No, the backyard setback.
the backyard setback, go further back.
Yeah.
It's a question of how much do they need?
Another bedroom.
Because, yeah, we have some room in the back, but it's just a question of like, how much do we actually need?
Right,
We
okay.
have like another 13 feet.
And are you gonna submit some, I'm looking, if you look at what you call the right side elevation, which is the north elevation, I guess, right? The one that faces your neighbor?
Okay.
You're gonna submit some kind of landscape plan or something that shows, because that's all just solid wall there, right? But I guess that's the existing condition as well? No, like in the right
Okay.
side what you call the right side elevation.
So,
That's blank wall that exists now as well?
yes. It's not as tall, the existing one, because we're adding roughly half a story to get the knee wall.
Anyway, I assume you're gonna submit a landscaping plan that deals with the planting at the foundation of this, because it looks,
So currently, there is a privacy fencing here, so, you can't, are you looking for some tall trees here? 'Cause there's
I don't know, maybe
already
it's
a
not
tall fence over
necessary.
here.
I don't know.
There's like, I think, 8 feet tall fence between us, the neighbor and us.
Can you, yes, speak into the mic.
6 feet? It's gotta be 6 foot, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I believe there is like either a 6 or 8 feet tall fence between us and the neighbor.
If it's an old fence, it could have been before we had a fence code.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because fences are generally 4 feet,
6 feet in the back.
6 feet in the
It
back.
wouldn't go back like that if it was changed.
Okay.
You know, one thing we look for is how to mitigate, you're adding a lot of mass to your building here. How do we ease that, in relation to the neighbor's perception of it? And if you can plant a few trees just to help block their view of your building, that, we look favorably on
Or
that.
bushes.
Okay, so some tall,
I have to run over by my mom, by my parents.
Tree
they're
doesn't
the
do
one that
much
do,
good.
I mean,
Trunk.
Well, you can use
how tall
Arborvitae.
of the trees you're talking about?
I haven't looked at your site, so I don't know how steep the slope is there.
I don't think the slope is that steep.
It's pretty,
It goes from
it's pretty steep.
250 down to 238.
And the house to the north of you feels pretty far below it.
Okay.
so we're talking about putting some tall,
See, look, here's one, first of all, the owner would prefer not to spend money on landscape. I understand what the board's views are, but my client would prefer not to spend money on landscaping. All they're doing is going up a little bit with the existing home, within the code. Not asking for anything special, not asking for any variances, not asking for anything for the building. Within his right, and he preferred not to spend his money on plants or trees. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right, but you know that's not our job, right?
Sorry?
That's,
Our job is to look at the
the
neighborhood.
fact that it's as of right is not, that's not what, we don't say anything is okay all because it's as of right, right? Our job is, as Alan was saying, is to sort of look at things that could potentially mitigate the impact on the neighbors. That's what site plan review is about, so.
But I don't think we're making
So-
it worse. Unless you guys feel we're making it worse, definitely make your suggestions. Because
Well, I just wouldn't understate the fact that the house is being made considerably bigger, which is great. I'm in favor of like densifying these neighborhoods and making it possible for more people to live there, but I wouldn't downplay how much you're increasing the mass of the house. It's being increased a lot. It's all good. So we're just thinking about, okay, what is the impact on the neighbors, and is there some way that could be mitigated?
And don't feel this has to be some hugely expensive design landscape plan, okay? I mean, I'm an avid gardener, my wife's an avid gardener. We go and we go to the nursery and we plant these things ourselves for $50 a piece, you know? It doesn't have to be a giant project.
I couldn't tell you an apple tree from
Well, with our neighbors, when we were at the planning board, zoning board, they want us to plant the tree that will basically cover just on the rear yard, and just one tree they wanted to put.
That's easy.
You know, which we have to plant anyways because we took down a big tree that was there because it was too close to the house and it was endangering us and a neighbor.
Yeah, no, I got a couple of arborvitae from Costco for $35 each, and now they're like 8 feet tall.
So it's like, we have the list of the trees from the village of Dobbsbury that we allowed to plant over there. So we're gonna do it within those the recommendations.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good. So should we call for a public hearing?
Okay,
Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. Mhm.
that's pre-submission.
Appreciate your time.
Well, so public hearing next month.
for a public
And
hearing.
that's where there'll be a resolution to go for, yeah.
We got to vote.
We ready for a public
Yeah.
hearing?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
you in
I
favor?
made a comment about the front of
The sky exposure plan on the front?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you like it like that,
okay.
I would just square it
I
off.
just wanted confirmation that that would not trigger zoning. I just wanted confirmation.
Yeah, no, it's not a zoning thing, it's a design
They
guideline
could
thing that
waive
we
that at the
review.
planning board.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks.
You guys didn't vote yet.
We'll see you guys January 4th.
You good?
Yes.
Butcher's over.
Very good, thanks all.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Great holidays.
You too.
All right.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you.
Same to you.
Next on our agenda, 45 Gould Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed addition at rear of existing residence.
What about
107?
107 Palisades?
Yeah, 106 skipped one.
What?
107
Isn't 107 Palisades next?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
107.
107.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
not yet.
107 Palisades Street.
Sorry.
Is anybody here for 107 Palisades?
I think it's Christina, she's
Oh,
online.
hey, Christine.
No, Christina, sorry.
Sorry, one more.
Yeah, I know. 107 Palisades Street.
Hold on. I'm waiting for my, just a second.
That's interesting.
It looks like the building behind it.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Christina, we're sharing.
Hi, I'm Christina Griffin, architect, and I'm here with Karen Schubeck. She's the project architect, and we've been working together on this project. We are proposing a subdivision of an existing, a property that has an existing house on it. And on the new property, we're planning to have a new two-family house. This is our cover sheet, just showing some images of what we'd like to have on the site. So the property is located on Palisade Street. It's just to the right of the church that's on the corner of Palisade and Ogden Terrace. And it is, and then on the other side of this property is a multifamily building. I think it has about 8 units. On this side of Palisade, there's a mix of multifamily buildings, 3 to 8 or more units. And then on the other side, as you probably know, there are smaller homes that are more 2 and 3 family homes. There's also, 75 Main, which is nearby across the street, which is, has several units, multifamily building. This is the aerial view showing our site. The house that's on the site is a 3-family house currently. This house has been in the family that we're working with for many years, since the 1980s, I believe. And they would like to subdivide and then build a house that will also be owned by the family. The 2-family house will have a smaller 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit in the front and a larger 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath unit in the back. So the images, the photos on the right show the house that exists, a 3-family house. It has a stone facade, it has brick around the sides, and it has some clapboard in the back, so a big mix of materials. Has some parking in back of the building. And then to the north of this house is a big open lot. And that's where we're proposing to do a subdivision and put a new 2-family house here. The lot with the old house, we're calling it Lot A, and the proposed new lot we're calling Lot B. So this is our site plan. On the left in gray is existing 3-bedroom, 3-family house. And then to the right in blue is the proposed 2-family house. This subdivided lot meets the zoning code in all respects and has more than the minimum area. Maybe we should jump to the zoning calculations over here. In order to get, we actually have already been to the zoning board, and we were able to receive 2 variances because our proposal for the subdivision required a variance for the setback parking, and we received that in September. And that's because where we have the property line, we do not have a sufficient setback to the parking. But that parking lot exists, and that provides the parking for this house. And we also got a variance for the impervious surfaces for Lot A. And that's because when we subdivide, Lot A has more, exceeds the maximum. And we were given that variance on condition that all our surface, all our paved areas on the new lot will be pervious pavers. So this new lot, Lot B, actually shows a new building that has all the required setbacks, front, side, rear. It meets a lot coverage. We're showing a small porch in the front at the entrance, and that porch leads to an entry foyer that will be shared by the 2 units. In the back of the building, we are providing parking. Part of the parking is a garage, and the rest of the parking will be outdoor parking. Now, this slide is showing our streetscape, and the first to the left is the church that is on the Palisade Street. To the right is 107 Palisade Street, the 3-family house. Then on our new lot B, we have our proposed two-family house. And then to the right of that is 111 Palisade, and then 119 Palisade. I think 111 has 8 units, and 119, I think, has 6 or more. Down below, you'll see images of this same street. You'll see the church on the left, and the existing 3-family house. And then on the other side of our proposed lot, you'll see the other multifamily buildings. On this side, on the west side of Palisade, the buildings seem to be bigger, bulkier, and taller, more 3 stories. I think there's 1 4-story, but on the other side, and that's the last row of photos, you see that the houses are more like 2 and 3 family, and there are quite a few porches on these houses. We looked at the guidelines for Palisades Street. Sorry, Karen, I just want to mention that. We just have a list here of some of the things we made sure we incorporated in our design. One is a single-story open porch. And the other is we have the frontage of the building. Our frontage is only 24.5 feet. It's very narrow. We keep down that facade width. We have horizontal lines that we'll show you in the
where's the single-story open porch?
This thing right here.
That's not a porch. I mean, it's okay. I'm not. That will be other things to talk about. But
I see. Well, okay. It's a roof with columns, but we can talk about that. Punched windows. And massing so that we have smaller elements at the first floor and a setback between the second and third. So we'll show you how we have where these elements are in the design. We're further along. So just to give you an idea of how we organize the building, this is the first floor where you enter a porch, and then there's a main entry that's shared for all the units. And you can go straight through the entry to a 2-car garage. The 2-car garage and the office will be owned by the bigger unit. The outdoor parking is for the smaller unit, which you'll see on the next level. The main front door to these units are on the 2nd floor. We wanted to make sure all the parking was concealed, so that's why we have a long driveway and you enter parking through the back of the building. One side is an underground, is a garage, and the other side is open parking space. And then on our 2nd floor, you come up the staircase and there's an entry into the 2-bedroom unit. This unit is just under 1,300 square feet. It's a duplex. So you have an open kitchen, dining, living, and then you go up the stair again, and then there are 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. I'm sorry, I meant it's 1.5 baths. And to get to the unit in the back, you continue down the hall, and the front door enters into a small entry foyer, and there's an open kitchen, dining, and living. This is with a deck in the back and a staircase leading to the 3rd floor. And that staircase takes you to the 3-bedroom, 2-bath layout. We also have another stair going all the way up to the third floor where it opens up into a roof deck. So we'll have a bulkhead. This bulkhead is within the 20% of roof area that's allowed. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are our elevations so far. The front elevation is a, it is 3 stories, but the 3rd story is tucked in the roof line. And we're treating the 3rd floor like as if there are dormers coming out of that roof. We have very simple fenestration, a little bit like a sort of a clean version of the older homes on the street. And behind this facade you see tucked in the back is that bulkhead, which reads as like a tower. On our north elevation to the right, you see there's a porch on the front, and then you go down this driveway and the building is open underneath on the ground floor level, opens up to the parking area. Above, you're seeing the 2 sides of the house, the unit in the front and unit in the back with different siding materials, and the tower-like staircase going up to the 3rd floor deck. I'm sorry, the roof deck. Down below, we have our east elevation. You know, we're treating the back more of giving it a little bit of an industrial look, since it's not far from 75 Main. You have a little bit of that feeling in the area, and simpler, a little more modern, a little cleaner, with vertical board and batten siding. So you see in the back, you'll see through the underground, looking underneath the building at the garage with a deck on top, and then at the very top, a roof deck. To the right, you see our south elevations where most of the windows are for all the bedrooms. So there are many more windows on this facade, or bigger than on the north elevation for passive solar. And we have like 2 different houses, 2 different materials for each side of the building. This is our color scheme so far, where we are deliberately trying to mix the materials so that we have something that looks more traditional in the front and something that's a little modern or a little slightly industrial in the back, and giving a little pop of color for the tower. We are blending, we're mixing board and batten for the back of the building, and then for the front lap siding with a reddish brick stucco on the bottom level. A reddish brick color on the front door in the tower. The taupe color, the red brick, and the gray are all colors that we see in the building next door, so it's kind of inspired us. The existing 3-family house has these colors in the stone and the brick. And we also have a landscaping plan. This is just indicating that we are showing the privacy evergreens along the parking that exists in Lot 8. We do have a calculation to show that we are replacing more than 50% of the trees that were of the total aggregate diameter of the trees we're removing. And what you see in green is the green area, the open green space around the building. We also have our lighting plan to the right, and our civil engineering drawing showing our storm drainage in the back.
I don't know if Hansen would like to speak to the drawings at the moment. I believe they're on the call.
I can speak to them if anyone has any questions, but generally speaking, also, by the way, Obada from Hudson Engineering, we've essentially captured the entire house and the entire pervious driveway as if it was impervious, and captured it all in the Coltex in the rear for the required storm event for the town, village.
So Karen, maybe you can go back to our, I don't know, the cover site plan or color scheme, or just this page. So that's the end of our presentation for our first meeting here, and look forward to hearing your comments.
Thanks. Did I hear you say you're taking architectural cues from 111 Palisades? Is that, was I
No.
mistaken? Okay, good.
No, not at all. No, in
Okay.
fact, that building is just, I mean, let's go to our streetscape. We know that building is not attractive at all. Not at all. Or we're getting one of the things that I thought was kind of, there's so many different styles on the street, you know, and we're kind of like trying to see if that front facade picks up more on these smaller homes. But I just mentioned that 75 Main has some interesting industrial kind of feeling to the fenestration that I thought that's something we picked up on.
You know, when you mentioned the brick color and stuff, I didn't hear whether that was referring
No,
to.
not that brick.
Okay.
No, if you look at in fact, Karen is pointing to it. If look at 107A,
Oh,
you
gotcha,
see
okay.
the taupe and the brick colors
Yeah.
and the gray. Those are the colors that kind of inspired us. And just as, you know, just to take a cue from something that's in the neighborhood.
I have to tell you, I don't have an issue with the overall scale of the building. I don't have an issue with the density. I don't have really an issue with the site plan. But I find the architecture to be really problematic. This is a building that you're going to see, the primary elevation for this building is going to be the east elevation. That's really most of what you're going to see of this building. And the front of the building has nothing to do with the sides of the building. It's paper thin. This thing that you call a kind of gable, which I think is a legitimate way to break down the massing, is not actually a gable, because if you look at the side elevation, it's continuous from the cantilever up to the eave line. It's like 5 different, I mean, it's great to say we're taking a piece of this and we're taking a piece of that. At the end of the day, it looks so confused. It has no identity. And I really think, like, I don't think it's a site planning issue. I don't really, there's nothing I really have to say about the massing in particular, about the site, about the overall site planning. But I find the architecture to be just crazy and confused. And I don't get it.
I appreciate you.
I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but I really think it's crazy. The east elevation and the west elevation, and this idea that suddenly in the back it's this industrial building, where is that coming from?
Very long building, and it needs to be broken up one way or another. And
Totally, and it's a
very
challenge,
narrow.
right? It's a challenge to figure out how to break up a long building.
Yeah.
I get it, that's a challenge. You haven't figured it out.
Well, I mean,
Not even
I
close.
guess. We're gonna look
And
at other
also,
options.
you're going to be looking, remember, no, I'm serious, Christina, I think you're a good architect. I don't understand this. And if you're going to be looking at it, and from the side, by the way, you're going to see this, half the building is in the air. So as you said, you're going to be looking at the garage. So you're going to have to figure out some way to, in terms of the site planning, whether it's landscaping or a fence or whatever, you're going to have to do something about that. But the primary way you're going to experience this building is a kind of oblique view where you see mostly the east elevation and the front as you go by it. And those things have to look like they are a building that makes sense, not a kind of collage thing. I mean, I realize this is the funky part of Palisades Street, and the building to the north is not the greatest building. But if you look across the street are the classic buildings along Palisades Street. They have an honest-to-God porch, where you have is not a porch. And the idea of sort of slapping that look on the front, and then turning the corner, seeing the thickness of whatever that frontage is on the east elevation, and then like a bunch of different things going on, is like, I don't get it. I'm sorry, I like really.
Well, I was struggling with
Well-
the south elevation myself in relationship to the rest of the massing of it, because it is very different. And I kept looking back at the streetscape to try and figure out where all this is coming from.
You know, I think we felt the height of the building would be, it's too high to make that transition between the bigger buildings, which hopefully will change one day, and the smaller buildings on the street. So
And the bulkhead
we
thing
wanted
kind of
to have-
threw me too.
Yeah.
The bulkhead, it just looks like a silo or something. It just doesn't seem to somehow fit.
I don't think you'll see that, at least from the east. It's going to be set back. You know, I just remember 156 Palisades where you really came up with a sort of a very fresh, sort of integral design. It surprised us.
Which was completely, by the way, in a lot of ways, it's sort of.
It's like all the things we said you shouldn't do.
Right, conceptually, it's not like we're super crazed about the design guidelines. In the end, you came up with a solution that made sense in a lot of ways, and it had this kind of completely modern look that was actually kind of different than everything else on the street. So it's not like, but it was one thing. I mean, it looked like one building.
You know,
And-
I just want to tell you from my perspective, I felt, I think buildings like that can really work on the street. But, after looking at those guidelines, I feel like there's this goal to try to get the scale and massing of those older buildings. And this is actually a 3-story building. So, if it is, the front facade is trying to tie in with all the buildings across the street, and maybe we don't have to do that here. But, I was sort of like, that was my understanding of those guidelines, but I don't think I was so beholden to that when I was doing that other design. And I think I have your point. I got your point, and I just would like to come back with other options right now, because I do think the best design is when it works as one building. And yes, we can look at that. I think I would try to do 2 different buildings here, and we can definitely look at something that is much more integrated and one entire design.
And also, like, to your point, I mean, I realize it's more expensive, but this idea that you sort of break down the 3rd story by having the kind of dormer thing, even if the dormer is almost the entire scale of the side elevation, I'm all about that, but you haven't done that. I mean, from the front, you can pretend it's a dormer, but if you look at the east elevation, it's one surface. It doesn't provide any of the massing relief. What you'd have to do is continue that same eave line that you have at the 2-story level on the front elevation and have it turn the corner the way you have, but then continue in some way. I mean, it have to be a real massing setback. It couldn't be this thing where you just sort of plaster on a piece of a roof and an eave, but really everyone knows that the building is all just one plane and one big volume with this kind of faux eave thing happening.
Well, we also have a roof deck in the back and not in the front. So there's a big difference with what's going on up above. But let me come back with other options. I've heard you and I understand, and I'd like to see if we can pull this, get a consistent design to pull this together. And thank you. I mean, I I'm sure we can make this a really interesting building. So
I
let
think
us
having it
come
broken up
back.
is better than having one big.
Well, I have a question to the board.
Totally, the massing, I'm all about breaking up the massing, but all because you break up the massing doesn't mean every piece of the massing needs to be a different architecture.
So I have a question to the board. So I know we have the Palisades design guidelines, but a similar aspect ratio building, 255 Broadway, you know, turned out really nicely.
Yeah.
And now it's a very different style, right, and all that, but it's a similar footprint.
Yeah.
And I
It's
just wondered
actually-
whether the board would be willing to consider something that's a little bit different from the other buildings on the street.
Yes, and I actually looked, I thought of the same thing, and I actually looked, and the problem is, because I was gonna tell Christina, just take that building and put it here, but this site is narrower by about 12 feet, and it doesn't fit.
Okay.
And so I'm not about like forcing you to do like a sort of, like, I think it could be as the one that we approved further down the street. It could be a modern building, but it can't be 5 different buildings that look like they're kind of collaged together. I mean, you know, the building that you did on Broadway, that's clearly one building. It's one look. It's a long building, but it works. And it's a
You
nice
know,
building.
I do a lot of modern buildings, and they're usually not in this area. I
You have two.
probably was too influenced by the guidelines and thinking that it needs to look more like the older building. I know exactly what you're talking about. I really think you've made your point. I will come back with other options. I'm be happy to. And you'll see, we can do something really fun with this building.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I just think I got the wrong impression, and it's really very specific. I think those guidelines, I'm thinking of all the datums and how I'm going to make that work. You know, I know so much thought went into these documents, and it's very beautifully written. But I'm going to take a fresh look and look at the building as a whole, and not as one building.
It's funny because the guidelines really mostly apply to the eastern side of the street.
Well, I don't know.
They do. And that's what we, you know, when you see the drawings, it's mostly the eastern. And anyway, because the tall buildings on the west side here, on the northwest side of Riverside Place are really quite different.
I think there is a way to follow the guidelines with this building, by the way. I'm not saying you should suddenly flip this over and make it into a modern building. I'm just saying, I think you should pick one approach and play it through the whole building.
Okay. I think one thing is, I already took a quick look at this, is that if I go with a full 3-story, it's just a different scale, a different look. But it's really the best way to integrate front and back is just to come to terms with this being a 3-story building, not a 2-story.
Or do the dormer idea, you know, like, but really do it. I mean, right, like, you come up to the you come up to the eave, and then most of the 3rd floor is a quote-unquote dormer, but it has to have there has to be real, like, there is, if you look at the west elevation, there, that dormer looks like a dormer, right? Because the roof line of the front carries around. On the north elevation, it's just one unrelieved surface. So I actually like the dormer, the pitched roof and the dormer as a strategy for like breaking down the height of the thing. Just you didn't really do it. Right? You didn't do it on the north facing elevation. I don't know. I'm sure it could be.
I think she's got some ideas.
You could do better. Yep.
I do. I've already.
Tough crowd.
Why do you feel that way? I really want this to be a beautiful building, and I was playing with collage. I had the collage concept in my mind, and I understand and I appreciate your comments very much, and I will come back with some other ideas.
One thing, Christine, when you, when, I know you're gonna look at the, overall buildings and come back with, some changes, take a look at the other memos that both myself and Anthony provided, because some of those you're just gonna need to look at in terms of the site plan, and that might also alter some of your designs.
No.
No.
I didn't think so.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Christina.
I appreciate your comments, appreciate.
Yeah, no, I'm
All
sure
right.
it'll be
Good night.
beautiful.
All right, finally, we have 45.
Okay, we'll work on it. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, 45 Gould Avenue, pre-submission conference for proposed addition at rear of existing residence. Good evening, or good morning, or whatever.
Good evening, JB Hernandez, architect for the project. This is a approximately 10,000 square foot lot in the of B-6 residential district. We're proposing a 400 square foot addition in the rear of the property. There's an existing enclosed porch that we are going to enclose and expand on it, and that's going to become the master bedroom. So right now there's about, it doesn't, we're in compliance with the zoning. And if you continue on. One more bit. There you go. There you see there is the addition is right now there is an existing porch. The kitchen is staying as it is, and we are removing the porch and putting the addition, which will be the master suite and a walk-in closet and the bathroom. If you go to the, it's not visible from the front, and this is a one-level addition, and we should continue the flat roof, and we're going to be matching all the materials on the house. You see the next one there, and that is from the rear. So from the front and the left side, you don't see the addition. At this time, we're not proposing to remove or add any trees. And also we have pictures from the neighborhood at the end. When our house is the house in the middle, there's not much, it won't change the neighborhood, it doesn't change much of the surrounding properties.
Looks straightforward to me.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, for a public hearing. I mean, you have, there's a memo from
Yes.
Valerie of,
Yep.
yeah, okay. I'd say we call for a public hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I move that we have a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
Yeah, I know. It's too bad we can't,
January 4th.
figure out how to do these in the order of complexity.
We tried, we did a little of that.
We did a little of it.
All right.
All right, what's next?
We have review of proposed zoning amendment.
Yes, we're up to the zoning amendments.
Want to go to the
Hey,
podium?
sorry, everybody.
Identify yourself.
I didn't mean to interrupt everything. I was here for 2482 Beacon Hill. Did I miss something?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we're glad to review it.
That received a site plan waiver. You can just go ahead with your building permit.
Oh, okay.
Unless you want us to
So you just
get
went-
into it.
you just spent
No,
an hour
that's
listening to our
excellent
review.
news. No, thank you for the early Christmas present.
All right, good luck.
Happy
Good luck.
holidays.
Thank you.
Okay, the
Should have announced that.
zoning amendments.
All right, so regarding the zoning amendments, obviously, the elephant in the room is how we're dealing with the gross versus net
Right.
steep slope.
So why don't I just explain this current status, and I think Mike, trustee Patino's here this evening and can also weigh in on this. But, so, as you know, there was a little bit of, there was the one there was the application for Zero North Mountain that triggered the village board to look at how the net lot area is defined, as well as how it's applied within our zoning. And so ultimately, the village board decided not to move ahead with defining net lot area for both building coverage and impervious coverage in terms of its calculation, and wanted to focus on developing steep slopes regulations, because that's really the crux of the issue, is that the net lot area was based upon steep slopes deductions to try to, protect steep slopes. So what we are circulating as like sort of an informal review to get feedback are, I guess, modifications to what you currently have in your zoning for steep slopes in terms of steep slopes protections. So that's really where we are right now in that. I think the village board is open to hearing any feedback you have. I know the zoning board is definitely has, and we're getting informal review from them as well, but they clearly have a position in terms of where their take is on steep slopes dealing with the lot area. And so,
Could you just describe like what the existing is and what the proposed would be?
So right now, the existing has steep slopes deductions for net lot area for only lot area only. And the building coverage and impervious coverage are calculated based on gross lot area. In your current zoning, you do have some provisions for steep slopes, but it specifically refers to, the maximum extent practical as possible for slopes greater than 25%. And then it has a little bit of language in there for slopes greater than 35%. You should probably avoid developing on steep slopes. And so what we did was we actually took that and provided additional provisions associated with that, so that the maximum extent practicable would be 15 to 35%, because typically that's when you start with your steep slopes definitions, is usually above 15%, and then 35% or above is to avoid development on those steep slopes, and that there are specific provisions in terms of what types of site plan or information which should be provided to the planning board for consideration of if there is development or proposed development on those types of slopes.
It's our discretion.
It is your discretion ultimately. I mean, there are various levels of steep slopes regulations. Some communities actually have steep slopes permits. I think the issue with Dobbs, and the reason why I didn't suggest that from the get-go, is that there's a lot of steep slopes within Dobbs Ferry, and we actually have a map that we're about to send to the village board, and it really shows most of the community has either some sort of 15% or above steep slopes on it. So, to all of a sudden create a permitting process where right now I think there's a lot of, I think the biggest issue with steep slopes is, stabilization of the steep slopes as well as stormwater runoff. And you already have a very robust stormwater runoff review in your planning board process. And then in terms of, stabilization, the retaining walls and all that gets looked at very thoroughly. So that really hasn't been like an issue per se. And other communities sometimes also have steep slopes provisions because there are certain natural terrain that they want to preserve, right? And you are a river community, and so just naturally there's a lot of steep slopes that have been built on throughout the years. So that's really where we are.
Now, what about Peter Hoffman's position in his letter?
So I think they're still working on their informal feedback, but I'm getting the sense that they want to see the net lot area and apply to both lot area and also impervious coverage and
Building
building
coverage.
coverage. That is not, they haven't officially provided anything yet, so but that's just based upon the information that he said and some of my conversations with trustee Gallo.
Well, it sounds like enforceability is one of their concerns.
Right.
And the fact that it goes to them, I think we should take that very seriously.
Well, you mean in terms of
Well, there's people who are, as we know, the developers go to them for variances.
Variances, right.
And if they don't have the tools that they need to deny the variance,
Right.
all this is for naught.
So, right,
Very
so,
clear
so
to
I
them.
think the way the current, or the proposed regulations are written, it's not necessarily a variance per se, because the planning board can view you can agree with the development on the 35% steep slope with certain findings. If for some reason you absolutely disagree with that, I mean, theoretically, at that point, that they could plead a hardship to the zoning board of appeals, but it's not so black and white in terms of that no development can take place in 35% slope.
But I think he's talking about applying the net
Right.
formula to between 15 and 35. It used to be 25 and you want to make it 35%. So, I mean, that's a very important tool, I think. That should not be.
Right, and that's really where we're seeking informal feedback, right? So if you want to bring those calculations or keep those calculations in the zoning, then the question is, what do you do with the building coverage and impervious coverage? Do you want to recommend the net area, to be applied to those, or keep it as is, which is basically more or less the gross area at this point?
Well, it's still the dead area. It hasn't been changed yet, right? And also
Well-
in the definitions, it's either gross or net.
Right, so Dan, you look like you want to say
Well,
something.
I was just going to say that when the steep slope law was written, it was in 1989, I believe. And the construction and the containment of stormwater and everything has come so far since then. That's why I think we can tweak it a little now. Because our construction practices are much better. We can contain that water, even on Zero North Mountain with the size house that they put. They did prove that they can contain all the water on their property.
Right, but it's at its most extreme level, if you had a 45-degree slope, and, you wanted to put a house that, if it was flat, was a certain size, it would cover, vertically, it would cover almost the entire lot. I mean, there has to be some recognition that there's, a decreased buildable area
And size of
as you
building,
increase
yeah.
the steepness of the lot, or decrease buildable area.
Michael, you should. Waited patiently. Does it make you nostalgic for your AHRB days?
I realize the reason it's a bad idea for me to come here is it's so hard to keep quiet
Right.
during some of the applications. Michael Patino, Board of Trustees. The purpose of the steep slope section of the code is, or should be, entirely to prevent erosion. Right? This is a land conservation tool. And so what it seemed to me we were doing in the gross to net deduction, starting at 15 with a certain percentage and working its way to so you have a certain net percentage at a lower slope, a higher net percentage at a higher slope. Seemed like a clumsy tool for a village where a very large percentage of the land is a steep slope, and most of those properties have been designed, built, modified for decades prior to that. And so what you have is, in some instances, you have neighbors with the same size lot, one neighbor looking to do a modest addition to their house with some problems because they have 18% slope on that, and their net lot area doesn't allow that. So I wanted to look at what types of slopes were the most problematic for erosion control. And those are, I mean, you know, you can debate it, and there's some relationship to the type of soil and the precipitation levels and things like that. But it falls in the 35% range, where stormwater management and techniques for, you know, managing retaining walls start to get complex. So one of the things that you know, one of the suggestions that I want to talk to Valerie about is if we, and part of the reason we need this map is to help us figure this out, do we limit, or do we just not allow construction on things, on slopes greater than the 35%? This is an open dialogue we're hoping to have. I mean, I thought this through. I talked to Valerie about it, but we have a number of people who are thoughtful and intelligent that, you know, maybe have another take on this. So I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'm also talking to the CAB to see what they have to say. We've heard from Peter at least, but we're going to hear from the zoning board in its entirety what their opinion is. So really, I just wanted a more nuanced and, you know, Village of Dobbs Ferry appropriate steep slope ordinance. And I really don't think the argument Alan, you mentioned is really pertinent. And the reason is that your area is calculated as its actual area, not as a foreshortened area. And so its ability to retain moisture or, you know, rainfall in the soil is the same. It doesn't really matter if from this foreshortened view you have a larger percentage of your lot covered, because the land still absorbs the same amount.
So you're not concerned about setbacks. Now, maybe I'm not sure how these are calculated, but if you have a lot like this and you have your setbacks
No
that are
slope,
normal,
let's say.
no slope, right? Now, if I do this,
Yeah.
and I put the same building on it, the horizontal setback just decreased by 50%.
No, it did not. It has not decreased, because if you look at a survey does not measure a foreshortened dimension. It measures the actual dimension. Otherwise, I've been getting assessed improperly for a long time. If you
Right, but this would put you closer to your neighbors.
Your setback is the length of, yeah, it is not foreshortened. It is not this other one.
Right, but if I have two buildings like this, they're this far apart. If I do this, now they're much closer together. So the functional setback is much smaller.
I think if you're measuring the setback, it typically, when a setback is done, it doesn't look at the actual slope itself. It's
It's
almost
done
like,
horizontally, is that correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so my argument just went away.
But yeah,
Okay.
because what I'm talking about is, what we're talking about is the ability of the property to contain water.
I understand that argument.
That's
I
what I'm-
understand why that's
And
important.
that's why we have steep slope, that's why we're talking about
That's the
steep slopes.
biggest thing.
It's not about these other issues. And I think it's easy to, you know, you can look at one particular project, and you can say, I don't like that project, and we may all agree on that, but I don't think that's the reason to formulate policy, right? Like sometimes something happens that isn't quite ideal, but that's not, I don't think we should base our policy on, you know, on the one thing that, you know, maybe we didn't know of. So that's where this has come back. And I think there's a little bit of, you know, that's happening a little bit, but.
So what
or maybe not,
happens?
who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to try to.
So if the slope is decreased from 25 to 15, right? What does that mean as far as, you're just talking about surfaces, like water, and what about like retaining walls when someone builds and you have a steep slope and they have to chop out a bunch of rock to get a house in there, and then it creates like a cliff, let's say, above, and how does somebody stop a child from running in the woods and falling over there.
You just
Like,
asked like 11 questions you can't possibly answer because like, you know, you'd have to.
Right.
You'd have to see a plan and that's what
Right.
that's your job.
Right, okay.
Right, and I
You know,
think.
and I think you have the ability,
The
the
engineers
idea is
to
that we're
look
gonna
at
say, bring it to you. And if you look at this plan and you say, well, this is a terrible idea, and you do what you just did with the last application, you say, try again.
Right, and I think what we're just, right now, the language that we're proposing is new construction shall be avoided to the greatest extent practicable in areas having the following below natural features, and one was slopes of greater than 15% but less than 35%. So it's just really just trying to encourage applicants or the board to say, maybe we should cite the building or the addition in another location. But that doesn't mean it can't be cited there, and then you don't even have to make any particular findings for that type of slope. The real findings come into play when you're dealing with like the more extremely steep slopes, which is the 35% or greater, which you already have in your code, and we just kind of beefed it up a little bit more.
And one thing, you know, again, we don't want to hand you, unless you want this, right? We don't want to hand you this too open-ended issue. So if you have suggestions on a more sort of clear-cut approach, so for example, if you wanted to say what we did with the steep slopes, which is someone has to show a compliant version that is undesirable or somehow negatively impactful. And before they can show, before you can, like, so that makes the burden of proof on the applicant rather than you. So if you say, well, what happens if you cite it on this other part that has a lower slope, right? That you've got this one part of your property, it's 36% slope, you want to put your house here. What if you put it over here where it's 26%? And they say, it doesn't work. Now you have to decide if that works. I mean, one thing we could add into this provision is that for those kinds of projects, someone would have to show you a compliant version, or some, you know, I don't know. This is where
We could ask,
dialogue is.
but we could kind of ask for that now.
You asked for that.
Anyway,
now.
right?
It's we do that with, we used to do that with sky exposure plane, right? Show us the compliant version,
Right.
and it shows you this ugly roof line, right? Like we saw earlier, ridiculous roof line. Okay, go ahead. You can do the non-compliant version because that's beneficial to the community. So that's a way that we could maybe strengthen this, or we're open, any suggestion, we're open.
Whenever I write contracts in my business, I find that the more specific you can be, the better. You know, so if you actually have a number, like this amount of percentage is allowable on this kind of slope. And this is, I mean, I was going to ask our counsel about Peter's comment that if it's just our interpretation, is that going to come to a legal challenge that it's a taking, or did you?
No, I don't think so. I think as long as the mechanism is set up for you by the trustees, for you to act under, I think you're acting within the code.
So,
I mean, you don't
There's
have
a language like
to
to the greatest extent
yeah, I mean, so
practicable.
if it's.
Doesn't seem very enforceable to me.
But if there's, you know, some kind of benchmark percentage we can point to, you know, if a certain kind of slope needs a certain kind of proportion of reduction, I think it's a much more defensible position.
Yeah, I don't know about the language about, you know, as best you can, you know.
Yeah, no, it's like, that's a little vague.
What about,
That's what, you know, people like to fight over.
That's why we get paid so much money.
well, what about the language,
Well, you already just to let you know, you already have that technically that language is in there, right?
Yeah.
We just,
Yeah, so leave it in.
well, right, so right now it technically says priority for protection shall be given to the features listed below. These features have not been listed in any significant order. The relative significance of individual features shall be determined by the planning board. And then that's where and it lists slopes greater than 25%. So that's what you have currently right now. And you have in there, land use and development shall be designed in a manner that preserves natural topography of the site and minimizes the use of cut and fill as determined by the planning board through site review process.
Well, I mean, I look at the lawyer to see if, you know, is that?
I mean, I think that's clearer than, you know, to the greatest extent practicable.
So we can go back to the original language, you know, but it's really, yeah. If you want it to be like, you know, I think it was trying to provide a little bit more flexibility, but we can go with a little bit less flexible if you prefer.
I think that would be.
well, that, I just, you know, trying to be more specific, why would we have, who is the board having approval jurisdiction? Like,
Yeah, that's a whole nother,
Yeah,
that's in
that's
another
another question,
section.
yeah, yeah.
Well, in another section, it talks about sometimes the planning board and sometimes it's the board of trustees. So this is actually clarifying and correcting something, because if the board of trustees actually approves for site plan, having the planning board look at the steep slopes, like, it really should be the board of trustees that looks at it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's
that's where
zones
the
where,
approving
where
comes
the Board of
into play.
Trustees has.
The approval
Not
body.
approval
If it's
power,
downtown,
and they're,
Right.
Chauncey.
we do.
Anything more than an acre, they receive.
But again, if we're going to go into the language, if we're going to go to this next question of the board that having the jurisdiction, there's not a lot of communication between the DOT and the planning board, really, because we don't have meeting
Right.
notes anymore. So you got to watch the whole thing, and it's good if you're specific about which board has which responsibilities.
No, so this is, remember, this is a section in your zoning. So this is saying whoever has the approving jurisdiction for site plan for that particular application. So you already know if that application is before your board. This is further on down the line in terms of the site plan. There's a whole nother section that talks about site plan approving jurisdictions. And it says what types of site plan goes to the planning board versus the town board.
Right, and we're
I mean,
gonna
of
send
those-
it to that board
Right,
when we review it.
Right.
It'll be,
right. So you won't have to worry about that.
And that's really just shorthand for like, in this instance, it's the planning board, in this instance, it's the board of trustees, but either way, the agency having the decision-making approval, it would apply, so you don't have to say the planning board if this, and this, or the board of trustees and this, and this.
So the BOT and the AHRB and PB won't have to get in the smackdown.
No.
Who's responsible.
I think that's
right?
already been clearly
Right.
designated.
And that's what staff will
Yeah.
direct us.
Okay.
so I have a question. If there's land on a steep slope area and it's undeveloped right now, how does the steep slope law, or how does a roadway or access to those properties, are they also evaluated the same way as the property, or how does that work as far as
Well,
access?
right now, it's this clumsy method it's just a deduction based on, so if you have, let's say 50% of your property is 25% slope, then you take 50% of that and you do a specific deduction, and that gives you an overall amount that you can work with for your impervious coverage, well, actually, there's some discrepancy in the code. So historically, it was treated as also building coverage, but even though the code was a little murky about that, which is how this issue came up. So it's just a clumsy deduction. So, for example, you could, if a project came before you and there was a section of this property with a very steep slope and another section with a less steep, but the driveway had to cross that, that seems like a reasonable, that seems like a reasonable compromise. So in order to get from the road to the less steep part of the site, you have to cross over and build driveway or some other amenity on the steep slope. Seems like something you would look at and say, this is a good idea.
Well, we have a limitation as to maximum driveway grade, right? Already on.
yeah,
already on the books?
14%.
And at the same time,
But it
we've all
can-
seen cliff, modern buildings built into cliffs. I mean, where I grew up, there was one. And the only way down to it was with an elevator or stairway. You had to park at the street.
Yeah,
Because there was no way to get a car.
Neighborhoods of other cities are like.
I don't think we'll have one of those.
Hey, as things get more and more aggressive,
So where are we on the steep slopes?
Well, I need more time to look through this.
Are there any other are there any other changes that are not, thanks, Michael. Are there any other changes that are,
I have one.
that are issues?
Deleting the historic, cultural, and archaeological sites.
So, right, so I guess a couple people have raised that.
We're
So-
the AHRB.
No, I understand, but this is, so you already have a whole section in your zoning that tells you how you're going to look at historical, cultural, and archaeological significant sites. So this is kind of almost potentially, potentially contradicting
Oh, okay.
what is there in another section. So this is like a remnant of probably something much older when you, right, before you had the AHRB.
What's the section of the zone? Do you have that?
I can tell you the section.
I can look it up. It's easy to do, actually. I can do it right now.
Are there any other?
Well, there was all the tree stuff, but I guess that's covered by the tree commission.
Yes.
Okay.
The tree stuff that's, no, that's this month's stuff. So the AHRB, if you look under Article 4, is the Architectural and Historic Review Board, and has a whole thing of purpose finding, establishment, design review, and historical review, and certificate of appropriateness.
Right.
And is the ADU rec fee issue rolled into this as well?
No, that's a separate issue, and that's also on your agenda.
We're still working on.
So, but the other items, and there will be more, potentially more items, because I have more edits that are going to the village board in December, or actually next week. But the other ones are really more tweaks with input from the building department, just kind of doing some housekeeping, and the definitions in there, in the definition section, anything that's in blue is just text moved from another section. So there were other areas within the Dobbs zoning which had definitions, and so we felt that it probably should all be in the definition section. And then the red text is actually new wording, which is very little, but you can see that in there. And I think
Thank
you. Has another comment.
It would be, we have a number of things that we want to do zoning code-wise, and so it would be nice, I don't get to see you all together very often, and so if you have suggestions as to how we can interact in a very useful way, like whatever's, if you want to have a joint meeting to look at some of these zoning code changes together, or if it's best if you just read the stuff through and I buy you all drinks, or I come to this meeting, whatever is easiest, because I think this is the first step of many. We have a lot of agenda items that we're going to just sort of continually roll over, rather than have one large group that gets together and spends years trying to figure out all this stuff. We're just going to kind of small steps.
Tends to be more effective.
I'm open to your suggestion as to how best to integrate your thoughts and ideas for this into what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Michael.
So I got to read all of the Architectural Historic Review Board codes.
No, you don't.
So there's
That'll put you to sleep every night.
You did that already.
Oh, jeez.
Is there anything else we need to do tonight?
No, so I guess in terms of, so the steep slopes discussion is, I can I know the zoning board meets next week, so my anticipation that this probably would come back on to a village board agenda in January. So maybe if you can think about your thoughts on the matter, and if you have any suggestions, and then maybe at the next planning board meeting, we can kind of finalize it, because that would take place before the village board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when is our next meeting?
January 4th, although that's going to be a long one too, but maybe we can. Maybe by then.
The steep slope is important to get back on correct.
Yeah.
That
Right.
sooner than later.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right.
So have a nice holiday, everybody, right?
Yeah.
We may not, this august board is not going to convene again until 2024.
No.
Yeah,
Next
see
year.
you next year.
Next year.
Should have had
Amazing.
What, no
champagne.
no champagne? I was gonna
Should have
say.
had a bottle of champagne ready. If I thought of it, I would.
And I think the ADU fee is being
we're still,
You're
yeah.
still working on it, right?
Yeah.
We can close the meeting.
And we'll
We
have.
know Rob's position.
Huh?
We know your position.
Yeah, but we're doing more research,
Oh, good.
or as you requested.
No, I already saw some. I don't know who was responsible for the local area survey, but thank you, whoever.
We did, Rob did a little.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
it's more complicated.
Yeah.
Of
As
course it
everything
is.
is. So.
It is, and there's no